For now, we will move on and check to see what's making headlines across Africa today. At least 17 people died and 18 others are missing from flooding across southern Morocco. Heavy rains destroyed houses and triggered flash floods that washed away vehicles. The army responded by sending helicopters to evacuate dozens of people. Also in the news, an outbreak of bubonic plague killed 40 people and infected at least 80 others in Madagascar. The World Health Organization warns that the disease could spread rapidly in the capital. Fleas with a high level of resistance to insecticides are complicating efforts to end the outbreak. And a volcano erupted in the Cape Verde Islands, forcing hundreds of residents to evacuate. It last erupted in 1995, causing minor damage. The Cape Verde archipelago, located off the coast of West Africa, consisted of 10 volcanic islands. And Arise News across Africa continues with our report from Arise News contributor, Frankie Edozien. Hey, Frankie, it's good to see you.
Hey, Debbie, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's a little busy this evening as we all are waiting on the announcement of the Michael Brown story, but there's other news happening around the world, too. So let's get to it. You've got a few things to talk about.
Yes.
Let's jump right in. So first of all, let's talk about Zimbabwe's president, Robert Mugabe, literally changing the constitution.
Yeah, well, what he's done is change the party constitution, the ZANU-PF, which he has been in charge of since 1975. So what happens is usually the ZANU-PF delegates elect 2 deputy party members. Those 2 deputy party members then become deputy presidents when the party actually, whoever wins. But what Robert Mugabe has done now is decided that those 2 deputies will now be handpicked by him, virtually disenfranchising all of the people who are like party delegates, because he's having a war with his deputy president now, Joyce Mukura, who his wife and others say are trying to oust the 90-year-old president. And so he wants to put a stop to that by saying, you know what, no more elections for ZANU-PF. Over the weekend, he told people in an hours-long meeting overnight that, you know, he's now going to pick the deputies, and most likely those deputies will succeed him when he retires or when he dies. You know, he is 90 years old.
Mm-hmm, indeed. He's received a lot of criticism. This can't do anything to help with that.
No, not really, but the idea that, you know, you are holding on to power so that now you get to pick who is your deputy president strikes many people the wrong way. And so they're unhappy about it, but there's not much they can do if they want to be part of the ZANU-PF.
Okay, all right, let's move on and talk about the next one. And this is could be a blow against Islamic militantism. Yeah, Al-Shabaab has taken a hit from the Kenyan army.
Yes, they had fighter jets and they had ground troops, and they killed at least 100 suspected Al-Shabaab members in the hills over the weekend. This was in retaliation to a bus attack over the weekend by Al-Shabaab, where Al-Shabaab people pulled down 28 people from a bus and just shot them. They divided them according to religious lines. So if you're a Muslim, you escaped, but if you're a Christian, you got killed. And the Kenyan authorities responded very, very swiftly with fighter jets and ground forces, and they claim that, you know, they have destroyed these people, but they're going to continue to be this aggressive in protecting not just their citizens, but people who come into Kenya's border area. And so what we are seeing now is that there are people in those areas who are primarily in the coastal areas of Kenya who are primarily Muslim, saying that this is really very difficult for us because people have mistaken us for Al-Shabaab members, and we're just Muslim people. William Ruto, who's the vice president, is saying that, you know, the attacks into those areas and into the mosques, they're looking for terrorists. They're not looking for Islamists, particularly.
But they're caught up really in this very vicious, violent cycle, because that attack on the bus, Al-Shabaab, according to Al-Shabaab, was in retaliation for some of their members being killed. So where is this ever going to stop? I
don't know, but you know what was so interesting is that Al-Shabaab has a spokesman, and their spokesman this morning denied that any of their fighters were killed yesterday. So, so it's very interesting. They actually have a spokesman who goes on the radio and says, you know, those 100 people the Kenyan government killed, not our people. So
it's kind of slid off the headlines for a few days because of other news, but that, of course, is the epidemic that's still raging in West Africa of Ebola. Liberian president has made a very bold projection or goal.
Yeah, I mean, she's setting the bar really, really high. She's saying that by Christmas this year, she wants her country to have 0 new infections. And if that actually happens, that really means that Liberia could be declared Ebola-free by the spring of next year. And so when she made this announcement yesterday, there was a ship that came in from the European Union, a Dutch ship actually, that brought in a lot of supplies. The U.S. actually has noted that Ebola is ramping down in Liberia, so they've scaled down some of their patient units. But what she's saying is that she wants by Christmas no new infections in her country, which means possibly Liberia could be Ebola-free. It's just unfortunate that the same is not happening in Sierra Leone and Guinea, where the numbers are still ramping up.
That is unfortunate. Okay, let's get to our last one just in the last few seconds, and that is a very interesting protest in Central African Republic, a very novel approach, shall we say.
So, you know, I mean, because of Ebola, most people have forgotten about the sectarian violence in the Central African Republic. And over the weekends, women there were just, they simply are fed up with this Christian-Muslim divide and people killing each other. And so hundreds of women, they went topless and saying this is going to bring a curse to anybody who tries to divide their society along those lines, because they just don't want it anymore, because Christians and Muslims have lived in the Central African Republic together as one for a very long time. But this past year, we've seen at least 5,000 people die due to sectarian violence.
All right, Frankie, thank you so much for the update. Appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
All righty.